Om Tvameva Mata cha Pita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Sri Dakshinamurti Sudeshi Kendram Dvaipayanam Sutrakratam Munindram Sri Shankaram Bhashyakritam Yatindram Madhyeshi Kanchapi Namami Vidyai ओम नमो ब्रह्मादिभ्यो ब्रह्म विद्या संप्रदाय कर्तृभ्यो वंश ऋषिभ्यो महद्भ्यो नमो गुरुभ्यः सर्वोपप्लवरहित प्रज्ञानगणः प्रत्यगर्तो ब्रह्मैवाहमस्मि ओम प्रपन्नपारिजाताय तोत्रवेत्रैकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृते दुहे नमः. Pranams everyone. We are in the third chapter, Sloka number 37. Shri Bhagavan uvacha kāma esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavah mahashano mahapapma vidyenam iha vairinam. So Bhagavan is answering Arjuna's question, and Arjuna's question was, prompted by what does a person commit sin? Prompted by what does a person commit sin, even though unwilling, although he is forcibly being committed to do that? So in that sense, anichannapi varshneya, he says, the person does not have a desire to commit sin, and yet people commit sin. Why is it that? So there is no desire to commit sin, and yet he is committing sin. So Bhagavan answered, Esha kāma. He does out of his desire. So we saw in the last class how we are talking about two different desires. One, the desire of the intellect, and the other, the desire of the mind. The intellect desires not to commit a sin, whereas the mind forces the person to commit the sin. The intellect works on the basis of the knowledge that it has gathered, and the intellect says, for example, it says wake up early in the morning. The intellect says wake up early in the morning, but the mind in the morning says no, I'm not going to wake up, I don't want to, and the body also refuses because of the mind. But these are the workings of the internal organ, one organ only. We have antakarana as only one organ, but it is split into mind and intellect, and that is how the mind and intellect work according to our shastras. And we saw this, what is the swarupa of a buddhi or an intellect is nishchayatmika buddhihi. The intellect is basically that which actually decides. It's a knowledge faculty, it's a rational faculty, whereas the mind is always a doubting faculty. Should I do this? Should I not do this? And the emotions are also arise from the mind only. So the icha, that anichannapi, icha that Arjuna raised was about the desire in the buddhi. That says, this is a sin, do not do it. This is a papa, do not do it. So from the buddhi standpoint, the knowledge in the intellect says, this is papam, do not do it. But then the kāma, the desire that resides in the mind says, I want to do it. So it is always a fight between the mind and the intellect. So this is what we had seen in the last class. And how does the mind and intellect work? The mind and intellect works like the mind is basically an instrument. The intellect is also an instrument, but the intellect as an instrument should and can control the mind. It is just like a rider on the horse. A rider on the horse must control it. If not, what happens? The horse will have its own prakriti, own swabhava, and it can go to the way it wants. Our thoughts, the mind can actually come with its own set of thoughts. At that point of time, it is highly important that the intellect is the one which tells the mind to control those thoughts. Otherwise, the horse will go on its own way. Similarly, the mind, as I said, it has its own pravritti, it has its own independence. It need not or does not follow whatever the buddhi says. But just like the horse has its own independence. But if the mind is trained well, then just as the horse is trained well, the rider can actually ride the horse. In the same way, if the mind is trained well, then the intellect can drive the mind. If the mind is well trained, the mind will listen to the intellect. Otherwise, what will happen? The intellect, the buddhi will keep saying whatever it wants. The mind will keep doing what it wants. And our intellect is, there cannot be any problem with our intellect. Our intellect is all very good. That is why, as parents, we actually advise the children in terms of what they should do, what they should not do. And what happens when we advise, and those advice come out of our intellect. Those advice, if the children do not listen to, then we as parents, we get angry. But what we fail to realize is, forget the children, even our own mind does not follow our intellect, does not follow our intellect's advice. Our own mind does what it wants to do. It does not follow our own intellect's advice. And how could we expect the children's minds to follow our advice? Generally speaking, as I said, the intellect is based on knowledge. And the knowledge we have to gather from Shastras. The Shastras would have given us knowledge on dharma and adharma. And based on that, the intellect will advise the mind. So here when Bhagavan says, Yeshaha kāma, this desire, Bhagavan talks about the desire or the kāma in the mind. So Bhagavan gives the reason for Arjuna's question. So he says, what is it that is forcing people to do is commit a sin, although they do not desire to commit a sin? Bhagavan says, desire, kāmaha. So this is the one word answer for the question that Arjuna asked. But from now on, within this sloka and in the coming slokas, Bhagavan is going to do a threadbare analysis on the desire. And he will be giving us 3 points on desire. One, he will give us kāma swarupa. What is desire's nature? In Tamil we say tanmai. Adan tanmai enna. What is desire's nature? Then the second one is kāma adhishtanam. Where does that desire reside? What is the origin of desire? Then the third one is kāma jaya upayaha. What is the plan? What should be the plan to overcome these desires? So 3 points. One, kāma swarupa, desire's nature. Then kāma adhishtanam, the desire's origin. And then kāma jaya upayaha, how to overcome, plan to overcome the desires. Those 3 things. Now this kāma swarupa, Bhagavan is going to discuss in this sloka, then 38th sloka, 39th sloka, all 3 slokas he will be doing analysis on the kāma swarupa. Then of course he is also going to give where does the desire reside in this sloka itself, and later on he will also say how to win over the desires. Now why does Bhagavan do this? Bhagavan is treating desire like an enemy, as how we have to face an enemy. In fact, in this sloka itself, Bhagavan will call desire as an enemy. And generally, if you have an enemy, how to approach an enemy? In those days, at least when the kings used to fight against enemies, then they will first understand and analyze what sort of a person that person is, what are his strengths, what are his weaknesses, what is his nature. And then they would also know where does he reside. Where does he, when the kings come to know of this, what is his swarupa, what is his nature, and where does he reside, that itself is half victory. Then they can plan to win over the enemy. In the same way, Bhagavan is treating desire as an enemy and first wants us to understand what is its nature, where does it reside, and then he will advise us in terms of how to overcome that. So now we will see how Bhagavan is giving us the kāma swarupa. Bhagavan is addressing kāma swarupa in this sloka, and as I said in the next two slokas. In this sloka, let us see what are the things that he talks about kāma. Kāma. So Bhagavan first said, Esha kāma, this desire. It is this desire. Esha. Bhagavan says it is so evident. Esha kāma means I don't need to explain to you what do you mean by desire. Nobody needs to teach another person what is desire. Desire need not be taught. What is desire? I don't need to teach anyone. Every one of us has desires. Just that the object of desires may vary from individual to individual, but the presence of desire is universal. Every one of us have it. And even before one gets fulfilled, another desire comes up also. The desire is always there. The desires may keep changing, but the desire will always be there. Yeshaha here means pratyaksha. It is universally experienced by everyone. Therefore, Bhagavan uses the word Yeshaha. Now, Bhagavan has given the first part of kāma. Now, next he is giving Yesha krodha. It is this anger, he says. Now, this is Yesha krodha means it is this anger. This anger means the anger which we feel intimately. Again, we need not teach anger to anyone. We need not have a special class to let people understand how to get angry, when to get angry. Everybody has it. We all have anger. We are just waiting to pounce at someone. And if we do not get angry, it is not because we don't have anger in our mind. It is just that we haven't got an appropriate candidate to feel to whom we should pounce on, or we haven't got an appropriate situation. And here, Yesha krodha is not another reason for desire. Shankaracharya says, the desire is the one that is manifested as anger. So, krodha, the anger is a swarupa of kāma. Remember we said the three things that we actually discussed, kāma swarupa. So, Bhagavan is giving the swarupa of anger as krodha. And where does the desire come out as anger? When does the desire manifest itself as anger? When the desire gets obstructed. Kāmaha pratitaha san krodena parinamati. When the desire gets obstructed, the desire itself changes to anger. Bhagavan is not saying desire and anger are responsible for sins. Bhagavan is saying desire is the cause. The desire that actually manifests itself as anger is the cause of sins. So there is only one cause for sin, and that is kāma. So if we have a doubt, where does the anger arise from? So we have the answer here in this sloka. The answer arises from desire. So if somebody gets angry, we can be very sure that there is an underlying desire that is the cause for anger. And that is why where there is no desire or attachment, there will be no anger. For example, if the neighbor's son, he does not study properly, do we feel angry about that? Do we get angry? Do we have a feeling that we should actually scold him? No, because there is no attachment there. But when our own child does not study well or we do not behave properly, then we get angry because there is attachment. So wherever there is anger, there must be desire in there for sure. There is no anger without desire. This is Shastras are very clear. Shankaracharya is very clear. It's very clear, evident. They say the seed of anger is in the desire. So if there is an anger management program that we have to go into, then if we want to reduce anger, what we must do? We must reduce desires. To the extent we reduce our desires, we reduce desire. Desire can be in the form of expectations also. To that extent, we will be able to reduce our anger. So Bhagavan is giving the Swarupa of desire here. So this is the first Swarupa. The first Swarupa of desire is anger, or we can even say even hatred is Swarupa of desire. Now, the Swarupa will be discussed in subsequent slokas also. Now, the second portion to it, where does it reside? Where does the desire reside? Kāma adhisthana kim? Bhagavan says, Rajoguna samudbhavaha. Samudbhavaha means it is born of samudbhavaha. Where does the desire get born from? Rajoguna. So desire gets born out of Rajoguna. Now what is Rajoguna? We will have to say that which is the cause for desire is called Rajoguna. Okay, cause for desire is Rajoguna. So then what is desire? What is desire? Desire is what gets born from Rajoguna. We will have to go back and forth here. Like, where is this house? This house is next to the temple. Where is the temple? Next to his house. That kind of answer. To understand Rajoguna, we have already discussed in gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas to some extent in our earlier classes, in our earlier sessions. We know that. But Bhagavan is dedicating an entire chapter on all the three gunas. Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga is chapter 14. Bhagavan will discuss all these three gunas in detail. We will see there. But for now we can say Rajoguna is a certain type of samskara that we have that induces to desire and act. So Rajoguna is a samskara that induces us to desire and act. So in that case, what should we do to reduce desire? We should reduce our Rajoguna. Question is, how do we reduce Rajoguna? By going towards Sattvaguna. By increasing Sattvaguna, we can reduce Rajoguna. How do we go to Sattvaguna? How do we go to Sattvaguna? Right from Sadbhavana. So have a right attitude. Then Satkarma, do the right action. And then even food. The right type of food will make us do have the right bhavana. So Sattva Guna can be got out of Satkarmas and having Sattvic food. And thus by going towards Sattva Guna, one can reduce Rajoguna. And by reducing Rajoguna, by controlling Rajoguna, one can reduce desires. So you can say second Swarupa of desire is, it is born of Rajoguna. The Adhisthana, we'll come to it later. I think Adhisthana, I said Rajoguna is the Adhisthana. Rajoguna is not the Adhisthana. Adhisthana is something else. We'll come to it later. Born out of Rajoguna is also another Swarupa of desire. So the first Swarupa of desire is anger. The second Swarupa of desire is that which is born of Rajoguna. So if we contemplate and reflect that why do I get this desire, then we will be able to realize that this desire in my mind has come out of the rajoguna that I have. So if we contemplate that. But what happens typically, we don't contemplate on why we get desires at all. The desire, we get it as if it's actually a normal, natural thought. And therefore we do not give too much of importance to it until the time it doesn't get satisfied, and then it obstructs. When the desire gets obstructed, it converts itself into anger. So we don't reflect on it. Now that is, so the second Sarupa is that which is born of Rajoguna. Now the third important Sarupa, another important Sarupa of desire. What is desire Swarupa? Bhagavan says, Maha Ashanaha, Mahashano, Mahashanaha, Maha Ashanaha. Ashanaha means food. Maha means, we know, Maha means huge, great, big. Ashanaha means food. So Maha Ashanaha means a great eater, a glutton. Mahat Ashanam Bhojanam Yasya Saha Mahashanaha. So Mahashanaha means, we say Gundodharan, we say in Puranas and all, we have Gundodharas, which means who can eat without limit. They can eat as much more than what any others can do. So Mahashanaha means the Swarupa of desire is such that it eats or swallows whatever is given to it. In other words, it will never say it is enough. In other words, it is insatiable. Desires are insatiable. Some people think that the only way to resist temptation is to yield to it. And some people think that desires can be enjoyed and overcome. To actually be able to transcend desires, they say, if I enjoy it, then I will be able to transcend it. Shastras do not agree to it. Shastras give an analogy of pouring oil into fire. With more oil, will the fire reduce or grow? Thus, in the same way, the more we try to fulfill desires, the more the desires will grow. It will not reduce. In fact, there is a Sloka which says that whatever be the bhogas are there in this world, it cannot satisfy even one human being. In the sense, whatever things that we have in this world, the entire gold deposits that are there in everybody's house, in every bank locker, in every government, you bring it all together. All the land in this world, all the gems, all the bhogas, all the food, everything you offer to one person, even then that person will not be satisfied. That is what the Shastra says. There is no end to the desires. Why is it like that? Why that? But we say, no, I don't have that much of desires. I have only a few desires. I have got very simple desires. The problem is, when the simple desires get fulfilled, another few sets of simple desires will come in. There is no end to it. The desires do not end. Why does it not end? Shastra say, because all desires are different expressions of only one basic desire. All desires are expressions of one basic desire. That basic desire is, I am incomplete and therefore I want to be complete. Aham apurnaha, and therefore I want to be complete. And we think that we can be complete through a job, a house. If I buy a house, I'll be complete. If I get a spouse, if I get married, I'll be complete. If I get promotion, I will get complete. If I get some wealth, I'll be complete. If my children get married, I'll be complete. If I get grandchildren, I'll be complete. And I will always be searching to become a complete person. Raymond's is not possible. Raymond's advertisement says a complete man. Not possible through desires. The desires are superficial. And through these desires, superficial desires, we have only one underlying desire to it, and that desire is the finite me, the apurnaha me wants to be infinite. And Vedanta says an incomplete one can never be complete by acquiring things. Just by acquiring things, one can never be complete. Because a finite one, through acquisition, can become only a finite, because you are again acquiring a finite thing. You can never become infinite. So the very basic human approach of acquiring things to become complete, to become infinite, to become purnaha is not possible. It is an illogical approach. And as I said, the desire, even as we actually fulfill some desire, a few other desires come into our mind, and that will result in unhappiness in our mind. Unhappiness is basically the desires that do not get fulfilled is the cause for unhappiness. And if happiness as a formula, Swami Chinmayananda nicely puts it, he says if happiness as a formula, then the formula is the number of desires we fulfill divided by the number of desires we have. So the number of desires I've got 5 desires, I have fulfilled 5 of them, I will be happy. But unfortunately what happens is, even before I could fulfill the 2 desires that I have out of the 5, I would have picked up 10 more desires. And even by the time I come to 5, it would be 5, not 5 out of 5, but 5 out of 50. So the desire keeps growing each time. And unfortunately, we do not get satisfied at all. So the finite wants to become complete. Since it is not possible, we go on struggling. And therefore, Shastra say, and Bhagavan says here, desires are maha ashanaha. They are insatiable. Kāma is called maha ashanaha. So this is the third swarupa of desire. That which is insatiable is desire. Mahashana. Then Bhagavan says, the fourth one, he says, Mahapapma. Mahapapma yasmat saha. That which can give us, that which can result in huge sin is desire's nature. In other words, desire is the cause for huge sins. Mahapapma, great sins, big sins. And desire is the cause for sins. We have so many Puranas that actually try to establish this. And it's like, you take the example of Duryodhana. Cause is desire. Ravana, Hiranyakashipu. How they all, went through, committed sins because of their desires. Duryodhana, in spite of his Shastric knowledge, so Duryodhana, in spite of his Shastric knowledge, committed sins. Ravana had the same problem, that in spite of being a great Shiva Bhakta, He was a great Vedadhyayi. He was a great Samaveda singer. He was able to please Bhagavan Shiva himself. He was such a decent, well-educated person. But the problem is, he had a clouded discriminative power, which we call as mohaha. And that, in spite of the advice given by so many people, he could not listen to it because of his. Not that he did not have intellect. He was extremely intelligent, but the problem was the intellect was clouded. The intellect was clouded due to desires. So mahapapma, desires will induce us to do sins. And desire and anger both will make us, commit sins. Violence can be in the form of physical or verbal also. So some people have sharp tongue. They use their sharp tongue to strike people. That is also called as papam. So desire or anger makes us do papam. And if we commit sins, we go down in the spiritual ladder. Then we'll have to again step up. So again we'll have to put some effort to climb up the ladder. So this is the fourth swarupa here of desire, that which is the cause for huge sins. So Bhagavan has given 4 swarupas of desire. Now Bhagavan says, he says, Arjuna, Vidyenam iha vairinam. Vidyenam iha vairinam. Vidhi means know this. Yenam iha. These two are pronouns. Yenam here means, yenam refers to vidhi. No, vidhi yenam. Yenam means this desire. Know this desire to be what? Vairinam. Vairinam means enemy. Desire is an enemy. Where? Iha. Iha means in this life, in this human life. So Arjuna, know this desire to be an enemy. So what Bhagavan says is, handling this kāma and krodha, handling this desire and anger, it should be a lifelong project. For who? For any intelligent human being. Because our quality of life and our spiritual growth is determined by these two powerful forces, desire and anger. You remember we had already done the 16th chapter. In the 16th chapter, in Sloka 21, we saw Trividam Narakasyedam Dwaram Nashanam Atmanah Kāma Krodhas Tata Lobah Tasmat Etat Trayam Tyajet. Bhagavan said. He said there are 3 roads to hell. There are 3 expressways to hell. It's a huge road, broad road, high speed road. What are those 3 roads? Kāmaha, krodha, tata, lobha. Desire, anger and greed. They will take us to fast track our process of getting into hell. So Bhagavan says, Vidyenam iha vairinam. Know this to be enemy of this life. So this is the 5th swarupa of desire. That which is the enemy in this life is desire. And kāma yeshaha, krodha yeshaha. When Bhagavan says, we would think, why do we say only desire? Bhagavan says kāma yeshaha, krodha yeshaha. Bhagavan is referring to anger also. But anger is not different from desire. Why do we say Bhagavan is only talking about only one thing, which is desire? Because in Sanskritam you have this numbers. We have got singular, dual, plural way of addressing things. Like for example, Ramaha, Ramau, Ramaha. For singular, Ramaha, Ramau, dual, Ramaha is plural. So if Bhagavan is actually talking about two things to be the cause of problems, which is kāma and krodha, he should be using dual to refer to things. But here Bhagavan says yeshaha rajo guna samudbhava. He is using singular. Vairinam. He's saying it's enemy. He does not say enemies. Vairinam is singular. So he basically, desire and anger are no two separate entities. So either we can say desire is the cause, or we can say desire and anger are the same enemy from two different angles, or we can say two sides of the same coin. So, and as I said, desire, in the second chapter itself, Bhagavan Shankaracharya, when he actually explains desire, he will say obstructed desire is the cause for anger, or obstructed desire turns itself into anger. So desire, when it gets obstructed, it becomes anger. Desire, when it gets fulfilled, it becomes greed. That is why in gambling, if you go to any gambling house, in casinos and all, they have a trick. They will first, when a person comes to gamble, they will make him win the first time. They will make him win the second time. And then what happens? The greed will make him bet big and he will lose everything. So this is how desires convert itself into anger or greed. So summarize this sloka. Desire is the cause of sins. It is the desire of the mind, desire that is residing in the mind, we say. Because whatever be the dharma or adharma knowledge that the intellect possesses, it does not matter if the desire is powerful. And the desire can make a person commit sins. So we cannot, in fact, we should not complain that this person is making me angry. This thing is making me unhappy. This person is the cause for all my problems. Because Shastras point out there is no external force controlling us. There is no external devil. There is no Satan that is actually controlling us. The desires are all in our mind only. The desires are not fed by Satan. The desire that exists in our mind, the desire that manifests itself as krodha, that desire which is born of rajoguna, that desire which is insatiable, that which a desire which is the cause of huge sins, that which is the enemy of our life. That is the swarupa of our desires, of the desire. Bhagavan says that is the cause for people to commit sins. So this is the basically the essence, or we can say the summary of this sloka. Now we will go to the next sloka. Now in the next two slokas also, Bhagavan is going to continue to give the swarupa of desire. So sloka number 38. Dhumena vriyate vannihi yataadarsho malena cha yathol bena vrito garbha tataden tene damavritam dhumena vriyate vannihi yataadarsho malena cha yathol bena vrito garbha tatatene damavritam. So here Bhagavan is giving 3 examples as to how jnana is covered by desire. Knowledge is covered by desire. Desire covers our knowledge. So what is the next swarupa of desire? Desire swarupa is jnana avaranam. Avaranam means in Tamil, Abharanam means jewelry. Avaranam in Sanskrit means cover. Desire will suppress our intellect. And when an intellect gets suppressed, what happens? It will lead to delusion. When desire covers our intellect, it will lead to delusion. How? See, when mind is not affected by desire, what happens? When there is no desire in my mind, then the intellect will clearly say, what is dharma, what is adharma. When I don't have any likes or dislikes, when I don't have any desires in my mind, I will be able to think clearly and advise clearly based on the knowledge that I have in my intellect. But when the same knowledge, if I have the desire in my mind on the issue that I am going to speak, if I got some likes and dislikes in my mind on the issue that I am going to speak, then what happens? The dharma and adharma gets clouded. My intellect gets clouded. My mind will not listen to the intellect. The mind will say, let the intellect say whatever it wants, but I will do what I like. But even then what happens is, because of this knowledge, the mind will do it with an element of fear. Because the intellect is not cooperating. When do we have some fear when we commit some sins? Because the intellect knows that we are committing the sin. But the mind wants us to do it. And because the intellect is not cooperating, there is an element of fear. Because the intellect will keep reminding the mind that it is actually not right. It is actually not right. And that is how fear comes in. But what happens when the desire takes over completely? If the desire takes over completely, what happens is it will diminish the power of intellect totally, and it will say, what you are doing is right. You don't need to fear anybody. So when the intellect moves to the side of the mind, when the desire suppresses the intellect and brings it to the side of the mind, the fear vanishes. It's always okay or right to have some fear when we are doing something wrong, because only then we know that the intellect is doing its right job. The moment we are no fear in doing the doing the wrong things, that means the intellect has been made subservient to the mind by the desire. So initially the intellect would be saying the right things, but the mind would not be able to act freely. And depending on the intensity of the desire, as I said, the desire will convert the intellect and make it flip. And then it will start questioning dharma and adharma. It will start saying whatever is dharma is adharma, whatever is the adharma is dharma. And that is when what we call in Shastric language as moham, or in our Vedantic language we say moha, delusion. When intellect intellect starts behaving abnormally and sides with intellect and starts saying what is dharma is adharma and adharma is dharma, then we have reached the state of delusion. So this is the swarupa of desire. What is the swarupa of desire? Jnana avaranam. And where did we see this? We have seen this in this Bhagavad Gita itself. The start of Mahabharata war. What did Arjuna say? Arjuna said to Bhagavan, bring my chariot in between the two armies, so that I can clearly see the enemies whom I need to fight and win. He was very clear in that he is fighting a righteous war and that he need to kill these enemies. He has to establish dharma and others. But then what happens? The moment he saw Bhishma and Drona, he started arguing that this is not a righteous war. Because what happens? The desire, the attachment to control, it covered his intellect and made the intellect talk according to the desire that he had. So at that point of time, what happens? He sees whatever is right as wrong, whatever is wrong as right. That's because the desire has covered the intellect. Jnana avaranam. That is why we should never advise anyone who is deep in desire. If somebody is deep in desire, no point in advising them at that point of time. Because if you want the advice to be taken in, it has to be first validated by their intellect. But their intellect is not with them. It is not in their control. The intellect has lost its power. The intellect has lost its independence. So whatever advice we give will not be taken in properly. So no point in advising somebody who is deep in desire. Now, jnana avaranam. Desire covers the intellect. How does the desire cover the intellect? Bhagavan gives us 3 examples in this sloka. He says, Dhumena avriyate vannihi. Dhumena avriyate vannihi. Vannihi means fire. Vannihi means fire. Avriyate means is enveloped. It's enveloped by what? Dhumena. Dhumena means smoke. So just as fire is enveloped by smoke. Today we have electric and gas stoves, so that we don't see any actually smoke covering the fire or something. There is no. But when we do some yajna or those kind of things, we will know. Or homa at home, the fire will be covered by smoke. When we go to yagashala or something, the fire would be covered by smoke. This is the first example. What is covering what? The desire is covering the intellect. The desire can cover the intellect just like the smoke can cover the fire. That is first example. Then he says, second one, Yatha darsho malena cha. Yatha adarshaha avriyate malena cha. Avriyate means we are using the word avriyate again to covered by Yatha adarshaha. Adarshaha means mirror. Mirror is covered by what? Malena. Malena means dust. Mirror can be covered by dust, and therefore the mirror cannot be, or we cannot see our face clearly. That is another example. Now the third example is Yathol benavruto garbha. Yatha ulbena avruto garbha. Yatha ulbena avruto garbha. Yatha means in such a way what? Garbha avritaha ulbena. Garbha means fetus. Avritaha means again an envelope, covered. By what? Ulbena, by the womb. So the fetus is inside the womb of the mother. The fetus is not seen because it is inside the womb of the mother. So in such a manner also, the desire can cover the intellect. Tata tenadam avritam. Tata tena idam avritam. Tata in the same manner, idam. Idam means this knowledge, jnanam, avritam, covered by what? Tena. Tena means by the desire. Bhagavan uses the word idam and tena. Idam, he means this. Tena means that. He does not say jnanam and desire. He does not say tata jnanam avritam kāma. He does not say. He says in the same way, this is covered by that. What is this? What is that? He will explain that in the next sloka. Okay. Tata tena idam avritam. But here what we have to understand, idam means jnanam. Tena means that desire. Avritam, clouded, veiled, envelope. So, jnanam means jnana shakti. The power in the intellect is clouded. So when we talk about intellect, Bhagavan has given intellect for all of us. All of us have this intellect, the thinking power. the ability to discriminate, the reasoning power. We all have this, and it is being utilized by different people. It is utilized differently by different people. What Bhagavan says is that thinking power will be blunted by desire, will be wielded by desire, will be clouded by desire. And Bhagavan has given 3 examples. Now from 3 examples we will take some points, and you can see how Bhagavan has given step by step. For example, the first one he says, Dhumena avriyatam vannihi. Fire is enveloped by smoke. If the fire is covered by smoke, what do we do? What should we do to remove smoke? Nothing much. We'll have to just blow some air into it. The smoke will go and the flame will come up. The desire as a smoke, it covers the jnanam. Jnanam is fire, then the desire covers this fire as smoke. With a little effort, we will be able to remove the smoke. This is the first example. In the second example, Bhagavan says, Yata adrishaha avriyate malaina. Removing the dust from the mirror. Removing the dust from the mirror, a little more, if the dust has been there for too long, a little more effort is required. We will have to physically go and apply some cloth and rub it. So mirror cleaning liquid, we will have to use it or whatever, and then we will have to remove it. Then the next one is Yatha ulbena avruto garbhaha. Garbhaha avrutaha ulbena. The fetus is enveloped by the womb. In this example, what we can do? We can do nothing to remove the cover. We will have to wait in patience. Only time is the solution. So Bhagavan says, in the same way, the desires cover our intellect in the same manner. In the first step, what happens? There are certain desires of ours which would have covered our intellect. For that, only a little effort from us is needed. We will be able to remove the desires and the intellect will be shining forth. We need not go through the process of satisfying the desire, then going through the suffering of actually the desire being satisfied. We do not go through the entire process. With a little effort, the desire will be gone. For some desires, little more effort is required. More thought process is required. We may have to do some sadhanas for it. We may have to keep some vrata. We may have to do some parihara. We will have to release ourselves from the place of desire. We will have to move ourselves away from that. We will have to do some effort. Just like removing the dust from mirror. Then there are some desires. There are like fetus in the womb. We cannot do anything. These desires, we'll have to give it time. We will have to lead a life of dharma. It may take one lifetime or a few lifetimes. By living a constant life of dharma, we'll be able to overcome that desire. It doesn't mean that we'll have to fulfill that desire. Bhagavan doesn't say that. He says, lead a life of dharma. It will not go so soon. Just be in the process, continue to be in the process. Over a period of time, it will be removed. So the desires can be in any of these categories. There can be some desires which are strong and it cannot be removed so easily. There are some desires that can be removed easily. Some desires we can remove through the studying shastras, satsang, that will help us. Some desires require a lifetime of dharma for us to be able to come out of that. There are desires have different levels of gradation depending on individual. Each individual, the desires are different. That is the essence of this sloka. More on this sloka, little more on this sloka we will see in the next class. Any questions or comments? Okay. If not, we will see again in the next class. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.